The first question that I ask every single person I ever interview is, can you please introduce yourself to all the listeners?
I sure can. So hello, listeners. My name is Jess Klass. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a senior instructional designer and adjunct faculty member at DePaul University. And I also head up our DePaul Instructional Game and Innovation Lab, which is a brand new lab that we started unofficially in March of last year, but will actually be officially launching tomorrow. So
Tomorrow. That's so exciting.
tomorrow.
Congratulations.
Thank you
And,
so much.
and where is that lab for anyone who's listening and is curious?
Chicago, Illinois. And DePaul has a split campus. So half of it is in Lincoln Park, which is on the north side of Chicago. And then the other half is in the Loop. We are located in Lincoln Park.
Very cool. Now I have a reason to go to Chicago beyond all the other reasons that existed to go to Chicago.
There are so many reasons to come here. It's an amazing place.
So tell me a bit about you and how you kind of got into this space that you're in today, whether like both at DePaul, but also around games and education more broadly.
Sure. So I took the pretty standard path, which is that I studied classical music in my undergraduate degree and then worked as a marketer for 6 years. And then went back to school for game design specifically. So I got my MFA in game design. I finished a couple of years ago. And as soon as I started working through the program and starting to make games, it just clicked with me instantly that games are useful far beyond entertainment. And this is something that I've kind of known for my whole life, but not necessarily had like the background to back it up with the correct words or like, understanding of what exactly was going on. And so I thought a lot about how games had impacted me over the years, like, even as a young kid growing up into a teen, adult, etc. And like what kind of things I wanted to put out into the world based on like what had been really helpful for me or like evocative for me, basically.
I love that. I love it. And so I'm curious, do your roots in classical music and marketing kind of apply to the world that you're in today at all?
I think it makes me a little bit of a Swiss Army knife on the development side of things, because I think the skills that most people come in are either like art or programming with, and my background is specifically like writing and music. So when I do game jams and stuff like that, like fully outside of my professional life, but like when I do game jams for fun, which I love doing, I often am finding that I'm like the music person all of a sudden after having taken a professional break from music for a long time. So
That's really interesting. And so kind of in your new position, you're kind of spearheading like a lot of these projects. And so how is that kind of having your hand in many little kind of different game projects that are being made?
It's awesome. It's great to get to do so much interdisciplinary work. So in the lab, we actually collaborate with other faculty members from all over the university. So I've worked with people in our College of Science and Health quite often, like our College of Nursing, our speech language pathology, clinical instructors. I worked with someone in queer studies, like really the entire university, and DePaul has a ton of programs like many universities, but getting to work on so many different kinds of projects with so many different objectives that are all kinds of different games as well. So like we do digital games, we do XR stuff, but we also do like tabletop games and board games. And for me, it's just super fulfilling to get to see all of these different cool ideas come to life. So,
Yeah. And so you're mainly working with faculty or you're working with students, just to clarify?
So the lab is staffed by myself and 3 student workers who are all students in our College of Computing and Digital Media. And then we collaborate with faculty members from outside of the university, or not outside, from around the university to make games for their classes.
That's really interesting. So it's like you're specifically designing things to be used within the university itself. Like you're not creating products that I might go and try to find outside of the like that I can just like go on the app store and like download. You're creating products specifically for your institution?
So far. Yeah, so so right now we're fully internal just to help faculty bring games into the classroom, because a lot of them don't have that background and understanding.
And so when you're bringing games into the classroom for people that aren't familiar with games, how kind of is that? There's a literacy there, right? Like people who work in games kind of get a literacy of like what a good game looks like, what a bad game looks like. We were just talking about this in a previous kind of interview. And so do you find that there's sometimes certain expectations for the products that you're making that can make it challenging to kind of get the learning material across, or that force you kind of into certain types of design?
I would say it's maybe the opposite issue, if anything. It's that like so many of the people that I work with come from so far outside of the games world that they aren't really sure what's out there. They're not that familiar with a lot of games. Like someone that I work with really regularly who is an absolute delight to work with, I think the first thing they said to me is like, the only game I've ever played is Pac-Man. So what kind of game am I going to bring into my classroom? And like, I love that question because I get to just open up this person's world to like all these different great things. But I think that so far that has been more actually the issue, not issue, but like more of like the roadblock for me to get over than the expectation that we're going to make, like the next Life is Strange and put it in someone's class.
Yeah, I mean, because I know that from some of the stuff that I talked to, like there's certain spaces where like games are still not valued, right? And so I'm always worried if like, there's like old guards and institutions that are like, you bring a game into my classroom, it better just be like a quiz because I understand how a quiz can like reinforce learning. And for a lot of us, we would say that a quiz is not really a reflective of a good game. But you're not kind of facing that at all in the work that you're doing.
Thankfully, no. I think that by and large, the faculty at DePaul are really open-minded, and what I'm doing here is pretty new. So I think they like hearing about like new innovative things, and especially because we focus on so much interdisciplinary collaboration, getting to learn about a new thing from someone who just graduated from the university, I think generally just gets people kind of excited to learn. I haven't run into anyone who's like, I hate games, just give me a quiz.
I love that though. Like I love that for you and to hear kind of that as a space that you're able to work in. And so one of the challenges that we've also been talking about is around like the difficulties of kind of young small games becoming something large because of budget and time constraints and all those things. And so I mean, it sounds like you're working within very specific parameters. And so are those providing challenges for you in the educational games that you're creating?
So far, we've been able to manage it. I think that that's largely because I am like very conservative on the end of the project management spectrum. And one of the things that thankfully, my like kind of co-conspirator, my supervisor, Lisa Gibbons, who's our director of instructional design, talked about before we launched the lab is that games take a long time to make. And something that I get very, very nervous about is scope creep. So I've been on the far end of like, we need way longer to make everything that I'm saying we're going to make than we end up actually needing. So far it's been okay, but we've been very, very careful about how many projects we're working on at a time. For example, we're only really working on like 2 large scale projects at a time at any given moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, scope creep's a real problem of like once you start getting into a game, you get so excited about like all the things you can put in it, right?
Absolutely.
And so I want to kind of because this is a podcast that's associated with the event, the Bad Game Arcade. I'm curious, that I'm using the term bad to kind of poke fun at certain things, but how do you feel about the space of educational games more broadly? Is it in a good space? Is it in a bad space? What is the line there for you?
I think that's a good question. And I don't know if I have a great answer. I think like I'm on such a weird like edge of the educational game space that I don't know that my vantage point is, I don't know. I mean, like I personally am a big fan of educational games, obviously. I think that they do get stigmatized kind of like in the larger, broader industry in some ways because people devalue them for whatever reason, which I'm sure is kind of what you were getting at with the title of the conference. But I don't get why. Like it's not mutually exclusive that a game can be good and educational.
Right.
So
No, I think that's a nice way to put it. That sometimes like a game that might not look as pretty as kind of the commercial titles we have can still get the learning goals across, right? And for me, it comes down to like a balance. And I know later we're going to talk about kind of the differences of making games in university spaces where that balance is very different than making games in commercial spaces, where it sounds like some of your funding comes through your institution, or at least you have some support from your institution. Whereas like if you're independent, that's not always the case. And so I'm going to leave that on the table for kind of the conversation later today. And I kind of want to just jump back to the process of running kind of what sounds like a little mini academic game studio. I mean, what does that actually look like since you're running it kind of in the space of academia? Like, what is that experience like? Can you walk me through it a little bit?
sure. The day-to-day, I would say, is not like no day is the same as the next one, which is really cool for me. Right now, what it has looked like as we kind of ramp up to our big, like tomorrow we're going to be at DePaul's Innovation Day showing off some of our work. And then next week we'll be in the newsletter for the first time, like that kind of deal, and like ramping up our web presence and showing off our work. We've been quiet. And so like that part hasn't taken a ton of time until now. That hasn't been like a very big part of what I've been doing until now. And most of the work that I do is split between time consulting with faculty members. So actually just like meeting with them and learning like what is your interest in having a game in your classroom or in your online course? Like, why did you contact me? Like, what kind of thing were you thinking about? Do you want to brainstorm together? What learning objective are you trying to hit with this? Like, that's the biggest question. And then the other half is really just creative direction within the lab itself. So with the student workers, we have a lead programmer, a lead artist, and a lead UX designer who also does a lot of web-based content. And so they all have, like their individual tasks and things like that, but we work really, really collaboratively together. And a lot of my role has just been kind of like giving them feedback, bringing the right people into the conversation when we need to have like more than one person working on something. Like for the avatar machine, that we've been showing off, like we've really been trying to get that completed. And we're going to have, I think, our final or close to final build done next week. We just got the save button function working finally. It's
Amazing.
not working in the build. Thank you so much. I am so proud of Crane, our programmer, for figuring that out, because it was a very complicated mess. But a lot of my role ends up being, like cheerleading, helping troubleshoot, because I do have a background in game design and programming as well, and being able to be there in whatever capacity they need me in, while also talking to faculty members and kind of bringing in more people who want to make games.
Yeah, and I kind of love that. I mean, I also remember the moment the first time I was able to make a clickable button in a game, and like the frustration of just doing that and the excitement of when it works. And I want to kind of clarify or kind of dig in a little bit to, would you view that every product you're producing is a game? Would you view them as games or like learning activities, or like where's like, because there's a really weird line, right, that we can kind of get to, especially when it's digital products, of like,
Yeah.
we have games, we have gamification systems, we have game-based learning systems, we have these weird like learning activities that are interactive. Like, so where do you kind of see a lot of your products kind of residing on that weird spectrum?
Mostly games, mostly asterisk. The avatar maker that we're making, I think, is more of a learning experience. And a couple other things that we've done are more like learning experiences, or sometimes actually we create assessments, but we just create them using non-traditional tools and approaches. So I would say like 70% of what we make actually, in my opinion, would be like games, like a game that you play. And then a healthy mix of like assessments that we've just like either made more accessible, made more exciting, created in some kind of like different modality, and then also just like learning activities.
I think that's a nice way to put it. Like especially in education, assessment is this really weird space of like game assessment's kind of already gamed, right? Like we're putting like a point system on it, so it's like how do we do that in unique ways? And so it's nice to hear you kind of working with that a little bit as well. But we're running kind of low on time, but I want to, since you are just technically officially launching tomorrow, what's kind of for you kind of the next steps or your kind of hopes for kind of the space that you're working in when it comes to games and education?
My hope is that the next step would be that we work with just more people. I think we've been kind of this like little ninja group that only the College of Science and Health has known about officially for about 6 months. We soft launched there because I support them as an instructional designer, and we had a lot of people who were interested in making games and simulations. But now that everyone's going to know, I hope that everyone wants to work with us. So
pretty much a field of possibility ahead is what you want. Just don't get overworked in that process.
Yeah, no, that's also real. So
I mean, just because the industry always talks about that, but I mean, I really do hope the most of success for this. And if I ever do end up Chicago, I'm definitely gonna want to come check it out, the labs, because it sounds really cool. I don't know other universities. Do you know of other universities following a similar model to what you're doing?
I met one other group at Meaningful Play that does similar to what we're doing, but I think that they focus almost entirely on tabletop and board games. And I forget the name of the university, but I know it starts with an F. That's
okay. It seems like relatively unique, and as you're even saying there, it still kind of is relatively novel and unique in what it's doing. And so, I mean, I applaud you for that, and I applaud you for spearheading that and holding it up. So, thank you. And I look forward to kind of hearing more of your thoughts on all of this in the panel later. So, I'm just wanting to say thank you, and I look forward to that conversation.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. This has been really a delight.
Pleasure. I can't wait to hear your thoughts further.